Uh, I'm quite overwhelmed, to be honest with you, in every sense of the word, at the levels of support and solidarity, including John's support for the early day motion from Chris Stevens, an SNP MP. Now, as you said, as the first worker, at least in Scotland, sacked on this issue, mine is a story that cannot be told, not yet anyway, but I'll touch on parts of it. Because like millions, we've lived through harsh, profound, simple lessons in the last few months. We're not all in this together. There is such a thing as the working class. It's the metaphorical butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers who keep society running, not the billionaires, the chief executives, or the spivs and speculators. And there is a magic money tree, in fact, a bloody orchard full of them, which has been shaken and robbed by bailouts for big business, who then chuck workers onto the scrap heap of unemployment when the lifeline of taxpayers' money is choked off. And perhaps most relevant of all for tonight, I think, is the simple, brutal message that poverty kills. That happened before COVID and during it. And Britain's sick pay scheme is not just a national, but an international scandal. You've mentioned already, £95 a week is the only guarantee, compared to an average across Europe of £245 a week. Bear that in mind. It's less than 20% of average wages, whereas the European average is 65% of average wages. And it goes on, and it gets worse, because 2 million workers in Britain are totally excluded from statutory sick pay. And on top of that, it's one of only 4 countries that totally excludes the self-employed from sick pay. And when lack of financial support for sick workers is looked at, it's one of the hallmarks of the crimes of British capitalism, in my view, even by comparison with the inadequate standards of their competitors. Britain truly is the sick man of Europe, making working class men and women sick by depriving them of adequate sick pay. That's the paradox. But what does it mean in everyday life? Now, IKEA, that I will mention, has a motto for a better everyday life for the many people. I wish. That's a company that made £11.2 billion in profit last year, you might be aware. But throughout the pandemic, I argued for full average wages and no absence penalty points. Why? Because the 6 absence penalty point system reaches a threshold and then bars sick workers from a single penny in company sick benefit, putting you on 95 a week. Now, household debts are record high levels, household savings at a record low. How many people almost wish their lives away where the last week of the month they wish it was over because their pay's run out? So there's no fluffy, soft IKEA financial cushion to fall back on for these workers on £95 a week. So many would drag themselves into work, even with symptoms, to avoid financial ruin and infect others. In the case of my workplace, until recently my workplace, 540 of us. And yet, instead of doing that, IKEA lumped coronavirus in with all forms of illnesses, punished the sick with absence points, excluded those above the threshold, and put them on £95 a week, and then sacked me for raising the health and safety risks involved. Another simple lesson from all this: without strong unions and strong union reps, we cannot protect workers' health. Because immediately I was silenced and then sacked, they imposed even more punitive sick policies, where after a maximum of 2 absences in the year, which might only amount to 2 days in total, you don't get company sick benefit. And likewise, a maximum of 10 days in the year total. It's a recipe for disaster, for disease, even for death in some cases. And it only takes the onset of winter flu, aggravated asthma and other conditions to show what will happen. And that's on top of the volcano that will erupt of physical and mental illness that's been stoked up as a result of prolonged lockdown, in my view. I know several cases of care home workers and hospital workers who went to work with symptoms because they couldn't afford to be off sick. And we've seen that happening in the poultry plants and the textile sweatshops and localised outbursts and so on. And that's just what's already happened. If we judge society and systems by how it treats the sick, capitalist Britain is condemned to hell and infamy, frankly. Poverty pay and poverty sick pay make more workers sick. It's a vicious circle based on putting billionaires' profits before workers' health. And that's why I've persistently argued for workers to get 100% of their average wages, and for everybody to be included, and for the self-employed to be included. And that, of course, in essence, is why I've faced the sack. We need united action to achieve this, and the kind of solidarity expressed to my situation, I think, needs to be built upon to defend every trade unionist, not just me, but every trade unionist who is in any way pressurised or victimised in pursuit of these aims, putting working people's health before capitalist companies' wealth. To coin a phrase and to conclude, we need to win a fight for a better everyday life for the many people, not a better everyday profit for the very few. Thanks for listening.